with tanks and also right here in this middle of this town that we are in called Luxembourg, there is a memorial of the Allied soldiers and also some of German soldiers who died during that big war. So as we continue to live in this place that has become a place to relax for us, we know that we are stepping on ground where many people have died. Today, I am speaking to you on the 7th of August. This is for me a day after the 6th of August. Obvious, isn't it? But the 6th of August, having been in Japan for about or over 20 years, is a significant one in that this is always remembered in Japan as a day in which the atom bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, where several hundred thousand people, innocent civilians, died. And many more continued to have injuries and illnesses many years after that event throughout their lives. So again, when we look around us, we see death all over. And yet it's not a scene of morbidity. It's precisely a reminder for us to be grateful for this life that we are given. I flew in to Germany a few weeks ago on short notice from Dallas when I found out that my mother-in-law, Maria Rice, Maria's mother, just passed away. Maria had fortunately flown in and had been with her and was with her on that day in which she died. She was right there in the same room and they were sitting silently with her. And so with her younger brother, Florian, my brother-in-law, so that she was able to go in the presence of loving family. And then we had a funeral several days later. I was able to fly in and join the funeral. So I would like to just acknowledge my gratitude to Maria Rice, the mother of my spouse, Maria. And as we sit here with Florian, my brother-in-law, and my wife, Maria, they talk about their own recollections of their mother, how she grew up in a time when there was a lot of conflict. It was during the Nazi period of Germany. And they, as a Catholic family, were staunch in their resistance to that regime. And they showed it in so many different ways. And how that situation really formed her, Maria's mother, and enabled her to really be a strong person, resisting many of these forces that would tend to defeat us, defeat the human spirit. I won't go into all the detail, but one thing that I remember my brother-in-law Florian told me about her recently in a conversation was that growing up, she was the one who really told them about things or gave them the direction in life. And she was consistent in her way of guiding her children into values of spirituality, of religiosity, of respecting other people, respecting things in the world, and so on. And that is something that she kept with her. She never wasted any food because she grew up in those war years when food was scarce and so on. And so she would always be in consternation when the younger generation would just be able to throw away food without too much thought and so on. So she had that sense of the preciousness of life itself. She had dementia in the last few years of her life. And so with that, it eventually caused her death when her brain no longer sent the appropriate signals to her body. So in the last few days, she refused to eat. And then with that, she just gradually ebbed out until the last breath. And so she passed away at the age of 92. Looking back at her life, given the stories that I've heard from Maria and from her brother Florian and from other sources in the family, at 92, one has lived a full life with all the ups and downs that it takes, with all of the hard bumps and hard knocks that the war gave, and her own youth and so on, and growing up, and then as a mother raising children and so on, with all the ups and downs of that. She is one person whom we can say lived a full life at 92 years old. If every one of us has parents, and we may be able to recall the kind of life, so I'm inviting everyone now to recall your own parents and just hold them in your heart with gratitude, thanking them for the gift of the very life that we ourselves are living now, and so on, with their parents and so on. And if we really extend that, it goes through all generations, through all people. We are all connected with everyone who has ever lived on this earth and who will ever live on this earth in some way. And to appreciate someone's life in that way as a gift enables us to see those various interconnections that we have with one another's lives. And so even those of us who are sitting here together in this circle of friends, I wouldn't, maybe it's not a circle, but small squares of friends sitting together through Zoom, we are all connected in some way, and with that, gratitude oozes out. As we sit here in silence, just watching one another's faces through these little squares, somehow something conveys itself, namely that that life that is flowing through your veins and that is breathing in you is the same life that I am living as I breathe in, as I live my body, and the blood flows through my veins and so on. And so in that sense, there is an intimacy that one feels in giving ourselves this time for silence. That sense of the preciousness of each life is conveyed to us as we sit. And again, having experienced the death of a family member makes us precisely appreciate this life all the more, knowing that I must also die someday. My own mother died when she was 72 years old. I remember I was on retreat in Maine, and Helen, who was then a travel agent, quickly got some tickets for me to be able to fly back to the Philippines. And I was able to be with my mother for about a week before she finally took her last breath. And Maria flew in also, and she was there. And so at 72, she also lived a full life. Now, I have a sister who was born, I forget the exact year, but died 3 days after being born. Now, she is part of our conversations in our family. She is one of my siblings that we regard. I have four other siblings, so there are five of us living, and there is Tony Marie, Antonia Maria Celedonia, who died after 3 days after her birth. And so she is part of our family of siblings who live our own lives together. So having lived those 3 days, can we say that she lived a full life? Maybe from a human standpoint, we will say, she could have gone on and experienced growing up and meeting somebody, falling in love, having children and so on. And she missed all of that. But yet in her own way, in those 3 days that she was given, she lived a full life. When I was in high school, I remember going to Mass on a Sunday in the town of Los Baños, where I was raised after having transferred from my birthplace. And I heard a priest talk about the fullness of life, talking about Saint Therese of Lisieux, who died at the age of 23. And he said she lived a full life as a saint, and she is acknowledged as a saint like all of the other saints, Thomas Aquinas, all the big people that we recognize, Saint Francis and so on. And yet she is called the saint of the little flower. And so this priest gave the example of the fullness of a barrel, the fullness of a bucket, the fullness of a bottle, the fullness of a whiskey shot glass. You ask yourself, which one of these is fuller? And that's the point. Whatever volume, whatever time we are given, we are invited to live that to the full. I again remember sitting at a family house after having gone back from a funeral service of a young mother whom I knew when I was a Jesuit in Japan. She had been she had left a son who was 1 year old, and of course her husband. And I was talking to the mother of the husband, talk about her daughter-in-law Kazuko, and she talked about Kazuko as now having completed her life at 31 years of age, whereas she herself, the mother-in-law, in her mid-50s, regarded herself as still on the way and continuing to live each day, seeking to live her life in her own way to the full so that she may also complete her life at some point. And so whatever length we are given is not so much what matters, but how we live within that length that we are given. As a saying goes, it is not so much, it's not how much time you are given, but how much you give to the time you're given. And that is what we are invited to really able to really relish each moment. And our sitting practice gives us that capacity to really taste each moment as a moment that is not to be compared with length or breadth and depth, but precisely as for the quality and the capacity to bring us to an infinite glimpse or a glimpse of that infinite life. I am reminded of a book that I had read when I was still in my studies by a priest, a Notre Dame professor named John Donne, entitled The City of the Gods. And there was a subtitle or one of the blurbs in the book that said, if I may someday, I know that I will someday die. Knowing that I will someday die, how may I satisfy my infinite desire to live? And that is precisely something that each of us can really discern, that there is an infinite thirst for life or a thirst for infinite life in each of us. Now, that does not necessarily mean an infinitely long life, but a life lived in that infinite horizon whereby everything is just as it is and everything is fulfilled and our hearts are filled. That is the kind of life that we are invited to really live fully. And our practice of sitting in silence gives us the leeway to live our lives not so much following or affected by the vicissitudes of time, by the outside influences, but enabling each moment to be lived to the full. There is a koan that I recently reviewed, and it's about Hyakujo, this Zen master who was asked by a monk, what is the matter of extraordinary wonder? Hyakujo, the Zen master, replied, sitting here alone on Daiyu Peak. What is the matter of extraordinary wonder? That expression is asking, what is it that is most important in our lives? What is it that will enable us to say, if we have experienced that I have really lived and now I can die at peace? This is what the psychologist Abraham Maslow refers to as the peak experience. These are the experiences that will come up when we are at our deathbed and we recall our life and ask, what was that all about? And these are the experiences that jump out and tell us, yes, you lived your life. There was this moment in your life. So it's an invitation for us to look at those moments when we really experience that taste of really living. So when are those moments when we experience that? A hint from Hyakujo, sitting here on Mount Dayu. Mount Dayu is the name of the mountain in which he had his temple. And so simply sitting here is that matter of extraordinary wonder. And extending that further after the sit, standing up, washing one's face, going to breakfast, taking a walk. Each and every moment has the capacity to be that matter of extraordinary wonder if our heart is there in that place where that is happening. So we are invited to live our life to the infinite capacity, tasting that matter of extraordinary wonder right here, right now. No holds barred. Nothing prevents us from that except our own delusions and except our own expectations. And so it is our sitting in silence that enables us to taste this matter of extraordinary wonder right here as we sit, right here as we stand, right here as we take a drink of water, right here as we look at the scenes around us, right here as we speak with people, right here as we live our lives in an ordinary way. And yet, an ordinary way that is of extraordinary wonder every moment if our hearts are open to realize that. The other day, we were sitting here together in our usual Zazen time. By the way, the three of us are here, Maria and Maria's brother Florian, and we have gotten to the habit of sitting half an hour or 25 minutes after breakfast each moment, each day. And some days we face the garden where we could see grasses and trees. Some days we face the window where we could see the ocean. But the other day when we were facing the window, I saw little flowers and also the grasses and also the trees. The trees were living their lives fully, a matter of extraordinary wonder. So were the grasses, so were the flowers, so were the pebbles, so were the clouds. Each and everything in itself, a matter of extraordinary wonder. We are invited to open our hearts and realize that and taste that. And what comes out is sheer gratitude. Grateful for this moment, grateful for everything that I am given so that I can share all of this with everyone else. And we will be living our lives bubbling with joy and gratitude. And we will know this life is infinitely precious. May you all live your life every moment and experience that preciousness of it. Thank you for this opportunity to share.